There we go. Okay, so without further ado, because the streaming systems are being a bit slow, welcome back to The Phoenix Within. So, this is our story where you can become the hero or the heroine by simply using your imagination to be part of the tale. So, in the 5 chapters so far, we've been following Morgan, our protagonist, who you can create to be whoever you want Morgan to be. They could be black, white, Asian, Arabic, male, female, non binary, straight, trans, gays, tall, short, thin, fat, whatever you need. Hair color, eye color, their sense of dress, anything you like. And if you haven't had the chance to join us so far, I am telling the story in the first person with minimal description so that everyone listening or reading when it turns into the blog can fill in the details and make the story more relevant for you. So, Morgan was going through a bit of a rut at the start of our story. Life just felt difficult. But then Morgan learned a few new things, from a webinar and some books from the library. Morgan got a second job and shifted their view of the world, and life was really good for a couple of weeks. Then the company Morgan worked for announced they were no more, and all the stress of paying the rent, putting food on the table, being able to buy things all came back. Life should be so much more than just the usual born, school, good grades, get a job, get married, have a family, work until you retire with some weekends and maybe 4 weeks off a year if you're lucky, retire, and hopefully have enough to pay for your funeral and some nice bits for the grandkids. So in chapter 5, Morgan decided to take action rather than wallowing in self-pity and worry. They got a new job as a cleaner at the university. Morgan doesn't want to be a cleaner, but needs must until something else comes along, and the coffee shop wages aren't enough on their own. And in today's chapter, Morgan gets something they asked for. So let's find out what happens next. So chapter 6, think, feel, act. Just check to see if, no, that's still spinning. But it's recording, so we're all good. So things plod along and go quite quiet for the rest of that week. I clean every morning, do the late shifts at the coffee shop, and work all day Sunday as well. The older gentleman came in at 10:30 on the dot, as usual on Sunday, and as it was quiet, I sat with him for a while. He asked me what I thought of the book he'd given me, Think and Grow Rich. I am enjoying being honest and the results it's getting me, so I say that it's a little hard to understand and get my head around sometimes. He laughs and tells me to just keep reading, and once finished, to read it again and again and again. I mentioned a few of the other books I've read and also the seminar I saw advertised at the university. He told me he's going to that seminar. I smile and tell him that I've asked to be working that day so that hopefully He cuts me off abruptly. You will be there. Don't hope to be there. Confirm it and say it. I will be there, helping with the drinks and the cleaning around the session. I'm looking forward to it. It feels weird to say it when it isn't confirmed yet, and the old gentleman smiles and takes my hand. Life is an illusion, just like the book says. And it might be this that you're struggling with, because it's a concept that is completely the opposite to everything we get taught in our lives. We create the world we live in. It is our thoughts, our feelings, our actions and beliefs that shape the way we see the world and interact with it. We can change the things around us simply by changing the way we look at them. He was right. That is completely the opposite to everything that makes sense to me now. How can looking at something differently make it change? But then I think of my old job. I had shifted my thinking in the last 2 weeks of that job when I was also working at the coffee shop, and the job did seem different actually, better in some way. I say this to him, he nods, smiles and agrees. The perfect example. A job you hated actually became bearable and possibly even more enjoyable because you simply switched how you thought about it. And this situation you're in at the moment will also feel much easier to deal with if you simply focus on the outcome you want rather than what's going on around you. Again, that will feel really weird, almost like lying to yourself, but it's no different to when you were a child at play, imagining all the land you were exploring, or saving the teddy bear's life on the operating table, or building the castle for you to live in the tree in the garden. I smile as memories pop into my head of all the adventures I went on as a child, the things I built, the lives my toys led. It was also real, but yet I can't remember when it stopped feeling real. Keep reading Think and Grow Rich and do what it says. Everything will all fall into place for you. He sat back in his chair and picked up his newspaper again as the door opened and a customer walked in. I smiled, nodded my head at the older gentleman, and walked back to the counter to serve them. For the rest of Sunday, I allowed my mind to wander. I'm pretty good at the coffee shop job now, so I can almost get through the day on autopilot, which gives my mind the freedom to wander away every now and then. I kept going over what the gentleman had said and reminiscing over my childhood adventures, reliving them in my head and seeing them as clearly as if I were there again. When that started to feel really natural and easy to do, I started to think of things that I want going forward, a better paying job for a start, but still with the option to work at the coffee shop as I love the atmosphere and the people. The image of the seminar poster popped into my head, so again, I took the gentleman's advice. I started picturing myself serving teas and coffees from behind a small table at the top of the seminar room, then moving down the sides of the rows, picking up rubbish that had missed the bin, and also emptying the bins during the break. And in between working, I'm able to be there and listen to what the speaker is saying. Think, feel, act. The image of that little stick person comes into my mind, and I start to think about what I was reading in Think and Grow Rich that morning. It's quiet at the coffee shop, so I finish wiping down a table and get the book out of my bag. I'm just going to go live on my phone on Facebook just to see if I can catch it up. And I'll put it over there. Okay, right. Facebook has decided to not work through Zoom, so I have put you on my phone. So we're a little way in because I was trying to give Zoom the chance to actually load the streaming, but it's not doing it. So I will upload the recording, which is on Zoom at the moment, as soon as, and share the link. But let's carry on. So through the medium of the ether, and this is from Think and Grow Rich itself, in a fashion similar to that employed by the radio broadcasting principle, every human brain is capable of picking up vibrations of thought which are being released by other brains. In connection with the statement in the preceding paragraph, compare and consider the description of the creative imagination as outlined in the chapter on imagination. The creative imagination is the receiving set of the brain, which receives thoughts released by the brains of others. It is the agency of communication between one conscious or reasoning mind and the four sources from which one may receive thought stimuli. When stimulated or stepped up to a high rate of vibration, the mind becomes more receptive to the vibration of thought which reaches it through the ether from outside sources. This stepping up process takes place through the positive emotions or the negative emotions. Through the emotions, the vibrations of thought may be increased. So when I'm happier, excited, angry, or frustrated, my brain creates more thoughts and can pick up the thoughts of others. I guess that makes sense when you think about it. The protesting crowd that's peaceful until a few individuals decide to add anger into the mix, and before you know it, everyone is angry. Or when someone enters a room really happily and you instantly feel happier. Those are more emotions than thoughts, though. What about when two friends are chatting together? Both are really happy and all of a sudden are finishing each other's sentences and thinking the same thing as the other. Maybe this book does make more sense than I thought. I continue to read a bit more. On the other hand, when the brain is vibrating at a rapid rate, it not only attracts thoughts and ideas released by other brains through the medium of the ether, but it gives to one's own thoughts that feeling, which is essential before those thoughts will be picked up and acted upon by one's subconscious mind. Thus, you will see that the broadcasting principle is the factor through which you mix feeling or emotion with your thoughts and pass them on to your subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is the sending station of the brain, through which vibrations of thoughts are broadcast. The creative imagination is the receiving set, through which the vibrations of thought are picked up from the ether. Along with the important factors of the subconscious mind and the faculty of the creative imagination, which constitute the sending and receiving sets of your mental broadcasting machinery, consider now the principle of autosuggestion, which is the medium by which you may put into operation your broadcasting station. Through the instructions described in the chapter on autosuggestion, you were definitely informed of the method by which desire may be transmuted into its monetary equivalent. I do remember reading that chapter. It's near the front of the book, but I can't remember what it said, so I flicked back to it. Autosuggestion is a term which applies to all suggestions and all self-administered stimuli which reach one's mind through the five senses. Stated in another way, autosuggestion is self-suggestion. It's the agency of communication between that part of the mind where conscious thought takes place and that which serves as the seat of action for the subconscious mind. Through the dominating thoughts which one permits to remain in the conscious mind, whether these thoughts be negative or positive is immaterial, the principle of autosuggestion voluntarily reaches the subconscious mind and influences it with these thoughts. No thought, whether it be negative or positive, can enter the subconscious mind without the aid of the principle of autosuggestion, with the exception of thoughts picked up from the ether. Stated differently, all sense impressions, which are perceived through the five senses, are stopped by the conscious thinking mind and may be either passed on to the subconscious mind or rejected at will. The conscious faculty serves, therefore, as an outer guard to the approach of the subconscious. Nature has so built man that he has absolute control over the material which reaches his subconscious mind through his five senses, although this is not meant to be construed as a statement that man always exercises this control. In the great majority of cases, he does not exercise it, which explains why so many people go through life in poverty. Recall what has been said about the subconscious mind resembling a fertile garden spot in which weeds will grow in abundance if the seeds of more desirable crops are not sown therein. Autosuggestion is the agency of control through which an individual may voluntarily feed his subconscious mind on thoughts of a creative nature, or, by neglect, permit thoughts of a destructive nature to find their way into this rich garden of the mind. After speaking with the gentleman this morning and rereading this bit, it now makes more sense. We can choose what we think about something that we've seen, heard, smelt, touched, or tasted. Also explains why sometimes we don't hear or see something that someone else has, because our mind has filtered it out and rejected it as unimportant. I guess if everything we saw, heard, smelt, felt, or tasted went into our mind, it would be very overwhelming. Imagine not being able to filter out all the detail in a picture. We wouldn't even be able to see the picture, as we'd be too focused on the individual brushstrokes or pixels. If we couldn't filter out our sense of touch, we wouldn't be able to process even walking across a room because our mind would be full of the feel of the individual carpet fibers. It would be sensory overload. It would be like that computer, Deep Thought, in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, that took 7.5 million years to compute the answer to a question, 42. It would be impossible to process all the information we receive through our senses and still be able to function. But equally, we seem to be programmed somehow to focus only on the negatives in life, to focus on the problems we have rather than the solutions. A customer walks in and I put the book down, and for the rest of the shift, I continued to mull over what I had read and the thoughts it had spawned in my own mind. After closing the shop, I went home via the park. It was dusk. The shadows were long across the grass, but I simply wanted to stand in nature for a moment and marvel at their brilliance. I don't know why. I just felt the need to. The need didn't last too long, though, as the first drops of rain started to fall, and after enjoying a few on my upturned face, I decided to head home instead of getting soaking wet. For the rest of the evening, I continued to read Think and Grow Rich and focus on the images of me helping at the seminar before getting an early night ready for my cleaning shift tomorrow. Monday morning came with heavy black clouds and a persistent rain. I still haven't got round to deciding if I should buy myself some new boots or not, so I made sure I had a change of clothes and spare socks in my bag in case I got really wet while walking to the university. The rain didn't let off, and on arrival I was soaked from head to toe. Even my jacket now seems to have given up on the being waterproof front. I quickly get changed and hang my wet clothes over a radiator in the changing room before heading to the office to put on my pinny and grab my feather duster and vacuum cleaner. During the shift, as I pass by the poster for the seminar, the manager comes up to me and asks if I'm still available Wednesday for the later shift. I stop in my tracks. Most definitely, I say, and they give me all the details on what I need to wear. Something a little smarter, more like a waiter or a waitress, with black shoes and nothing too bright. I say thank you and get back on with the cleaning as they walk away. When they're out of view, I stop briefly. Wow. I smile and do a little happy dance. This thinking about what you want really does work then. I nod towards the poster and continue dusting along the corridor. The rest of the shift and that afternoon, I start to think about the other things I put on my list and building the images in my head of a life with those things included. I don't even notice the rain dripping down my neck and soaking me to the bone again as I walk home. I do feel the warm water of the shower once home, though, as feelings seeped back into my numb skin. But I have nothing else to go out for this afternoon, so I put on some warm pajamas and spend the rest of the day job hunting and reading. Tuesday comes and goes, less rain at least, and the coffee shop was fairly busy with some new faces. A few I can tell are in town for the seminar as I pick up bits of conversation as I serve customers, clear and wipe tables, and deliver orders to tables. There's a real buzz in the air all evening, and it only builds my anticipation of what is to come tomorrow. Wednesday morning, I am awake before my alarm. I had a very early night and slept really well, so I get everything ready for my cleaning shift and for the seminar. I iron my clothes, pack my lunch and some other snacks to last the evening. I'd already decided there wasn't much point in coming home for an hour, with the half-hour walk each way between my cleaning and the time I needed to get back to help set things up. If the rain held off, I would head over to the library, which wasn't far from the university campus, and pick up some more books. Or I would find a quiet corner and continue reading Think and Grow Rich. It is going to be a good day. The clouds are still threatening, but not releasing their payloads as I walk, and I fill my mind with the images of my future life that I've been working on all week. On arrival, I hang up my clothes for later and get on with my cleaning. At 12, the rain is still holding off and the skies look much clearer, so I take my lunch and walk to the library, stopping en route in a nice open space to eat. At the library, I speak to a couple of the advisors and thank them for their help the other day. I tell them about the cleaning job and the seminar this afternoon, and they suggest some other books for me to have a look at that might be of interest. One is Psycho-Cybernetics by Dr. Maxwell Maltz, which looks really interesting. Written by a plastic surgeon, he's talking about how we see ourselves in our mind can actually dictate how we live our lives. So if someone saw themselves as ugly and shy, they would hide from the world and not interact. Or conversely, if someone was made to believe that they couldn't fail at something, they would give it their all, regardless of what was going on around them. Another book is The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace Wattles. This one catches my attention as Jen Sincero mentioned it in her book, You Are a Badass. I check these two out. 2 is enough for now, as I'm also still reading Think and Grow Rich, and I start the walk back to the university. The rain is still holding off, and the sun is trying to break through, creating small moments of that lovely warmth you get when the sun shines on your face and body. I love that feeling. Maybe I was a tree or a plant in another life. Like in the film, Benjamin Button. I think it's Benjamin Button. Not Benjamin Button. It's the little boy. Can't remember his name at the moment, but he puts his arms out and practically glows when the sunlight falls on him and the leaves growing on his legs. I smile, my mind wandering back to days of running through the sunny fields by my house when I was younger, on a picnic with my family by the little stream at the edge of the cow field where we also saw those feathery cows. I'm really enjoying the memories as I approach the university campus and head back in, taking a deep breath and refocusing my mind on the job at hand. I drop my bag off in the changing room and head to the seminar room to help. I'm early and there's no one else around, so I head to the front of the room, at the bottom of the steps, to see what it's like looking up. I imagine the room filled with people, all eagerly awaiting what I have to say, and feel nervous, even though there's no one actually there. Wow, it's scary in my imagination. I wonder how others manage to do it. Wondering what it's like? I jump slightly and turn around. Someone familiar smiles, but I can't place where I know them from. They're well dressed and they smell amazing. Oh, I was just, yeah, a little. Even using my imagination, I feel nervous looking up at a sea of imaginary faces. I've heard that you're supposed to imagine them all naked, and then that makes it easier. But I can't see anyone most of the time as the lights are in my eyes. I smile and introduce myself, offering my hand. They shake it warmly and ask my role here, not offering their name. I tell them I'm helping out today with the drinks and cleaning up. They nod, a worthy role, and thank you for doing it. I thank them, and their phone rings. They excuse themselves. I nod my goodbye as the manager arrives at the top of the stairs, and I head up to meet them. I help with the table set up for the hot drinks, and I'm given the job of ferrying jugs of water from a sink to the boiler on the table. Once done, we arrange various mugs and different types of tea bags and sugar pots, and then a filter coffee machine arrives to go next to the hot water boiler. It doesn't take long, and then the manager explains the order of the event. People start arriving in about half hour's time. We will offer them a drink, and then they will be shown to some seats. They are reserved seats at the front, and then everyone else is to fill up from the front and middle of the rows to make sure no gaps are left. Anyone late will simply have to stand at the back. It has completely sold out, and everyone is excited to have such a big name speaker in our area. I'm given one of the handouts with all the timings on, and then head off to get changed and smarten myself up. A few people start arriving early, and it seems that is so that they can get front row seats. I overhear others say that they have heard this speaker before, and they hold the audience in the palm of their hand the whole time. I'm starting to get nervous for them with this much expectation. I smile and welcome people as I prepare drinks in cups with lids, and I'm loving the energy of the room. The table is set up at the top of the room so I will get a great view of the whole thing. Obviously, I will be in and out a little, refilling the water boiler and coffee machine, but I'm not paying to be here. I'm actually being paid, so I don't mind at all. The room is filling up now, 15 minutes before the introductions start. They're doing a final check of the technology at the front, and there is the same picture as the poster displayed on the screen. So music starts to play and people take their seats. There's a low rumble of conversation and a hum of expectation across the room, and then the lights dim across the seats and the spotlights come on. Somebody comes onto the stage, welcomes everyone and thanks them for coming, and then starts to build the interest in the main speaker, giving their list of accolades and a bit of their story before handing the floor over to them. It was the same person I spoke to before we began setting up. I knew they looked familiar. The room cheers and claps and the seminar begins. They even thank the staff for their support, and it feels like they're looking directly at me. I remember what they said about the lights in their eyes, but it makes me smile regardless. The seminar really did capture the room's attention and hold it. Yes, I was in and out as quickly as I could and whenever I was asked to. No job was too big for me to go and do, and I did it all instantly. I was grateful to be there, and I looked forward to being able to do more of these events in the future. My main takeaways from everything I heard was to do with the little stick person graphic. It seemed to make everything I'd read recently make so much more sense. Think, feel, act basically referred to the fact that what we think creates our feelings. When we allow thoughts to grow and hand them over to our subconscious mind, like it said in Think and Grow Rich, it creates our feelings. So if we think something negative, it creates negative emotions: sadness, anger, worry, guilt, regret, frustration. But if we think something positive, then it creates positive emotions: happiness, excitement, contentment. These emotions in turn create the vibration our body is in. And it's this vibration that we can sense in other people. Like when someone in a really bad mood enters a room, you can just feel it. Or when someone says they're fine, but you can tell they're really not. This vibration also causes the actions we take. If we take an action while thinking negative thoughts and feeling bad, the action is fueled by negativity. The speaker gave the example of when you get out of bed on the wrong side. You stub your toe, spill your coffee, toothpaste down your clothes, bump your funny bone. Then every traffic light goes red on the way to work. It all has a compounding knock-on effect for the rest of the day. The entire audience nodded and agreed, and I could relate to that as well. The same can be said for when we're thinking positive. We get things for free. Traffic lights all turn green. Everyone is nice to you. But what they said next really grabbed my attention. If it's our thoughts that create our feelings, then it makes sense that we can shift how we are feeling by simply shifting our thinking. I had to pop out just after this bit, and I was gone for a fair while, helping the caterers to set out the snacks for the end of the seminar. Can't believe it only lasts an hour. And then the attendees are able to enjoy some food and discuss the content, which I think is a nice touch. On going back into the room, the speaker was holding up a card. On one side, it said the problem. On the other side, it said the solution. And what they were just finishing up explaining was that you can only see one side of the card at any one time. So you can either focus on the problem or you focus on the solution. And again, just like your thoughts, that's a choice. That was really quite something as well. And the whole room absolutely ate out of the palm of their hand for the whole hour. It felt like 5 minutes. It was over and done with within seconds, it felt like. But so worth it. So good. When the speaker finished, everyone was on their feet. Rounds of applause, cheering, asking for more. And they simply just took it, smiled, said thank you, nodded their head, waved to a few people, and then disappeared off out of the side room, out of the side door, out into one of the back rooms where they were able to just chill out for a bit, I guess. All the attendees just started having their own conversation. It got very loud very quickly, but the general noise was just that of excitement, of understanding, of growth. It was amazing to be a part of it. And I hadn't even seen all of it. I was so happy that I'd been there. I head out of the doors before most of the attendees start coming up the stairs, and I help the caterers to guide people to the tables where they could pick up their food. A few tables and chairs had been set out for people to sit, But most of the outside space, outside the seminar room, was just open space where people could stand and chat. The manager came over to me and asked me to just start doing the sweep of the rows. No one was going to go back into the seminar room, so most people were already up getting some food and some extra drinks. So no bags were left. So I took one of the bins and I started at the top and I worked my way down. As I got towards the bottom, the speaker actually came back into the room. It was almost like they'd forgotten something. So I welcomed them. I said, massive thank you. That was an amazing thing to be a part of. And hopefully one day I'd be able to take part fully as an attendee rather than a helper. They laughed, they smiled. And I asked them if I could get them anything, if they'd like a drink or a plate of snacks from the top or anything like that. They said, no, thank you. They'd be going up to join the others shortly. But what they did do was they pulled the problem solution card out of their pocket and they gave it to me. And they said, what did you think of this? I said, it was mind-blowing. It made so much sense that you can only focus on one thing at a time. They nodded. And they said that when they'd seen me standing at the bottom at the very start of the seminar, before it had even begun, they could tell there was something in my energy that was different to most people. I smiled. They said, had I ever done anything like this before? Have I been to any seminar? Was I reading anything? What was it that I did? So I gave them a brief history. I mentioned the books I've been reading, especially Think and Grow Rich that the old gentleman had given me at the coffee shop, who was actually at the seminar. I hadn't managed to see him at that point, but I was definitely going to catch up with him on Sunday. The speaker smiled and said to keep immersing myself in the material. And then they said, oh, just 1 minute. Went to their bag over by the lectern where they'd given the speech and pulled out a book. And they handed it to me. 2 books. I've never really been given anything. And now in the space of a month or so, I've been given 2 life-changing type books. The one the speaker gave me was called You Were Born Rich by an author called Bob Proctor. He explained that Bob Proctor was he was an American, did win in the Navy, was in dead-end jobs, fell upon Think and Grow Rich, which is what made him think of the book in his bag, and changed his whole life around just simply by following the information in Think and Grow Rich. I was astounded. Somebody 60 years ago had been given that book in much the same way as I had, and had completely switched their life around to become one of the top personal development consultants in the world, considered by some to be the grandfather of the personal development world we know today. I thanked the speaker massively, and again offered, could I do anything for them? And all they said was to simply just keep being me, to never give up, and just keep heading for the things that I wanted. And everything made so much more sense now. With just that little graphic, those 2 little circles with all the lines, the little stick person, and the think, feel, and act. My mind was blown. The speaker bid me goodnight and went up the stairs to join the rest of the attendees while I finished cleaning. My mind buzzing with everything I'd learned. It was amazing. And that night was the best night's sleep I've had in a long, long time. I was out for the count. And because I'd worked late on the Wednesday, and by late, I didn't get home until nearly 11, and they even provided a taxi, so I didn't have to walk home in the dark, which was awesome because it was still raining. Even though it looked like it was going to clean up, it didn't. It kept raining. So I got home and I got into bed around 11 p.m. I never go to bed that late, but I was so energized. I didn't even think I was going to be able to sleep. But I did. And it was the most amazing night's sleep ever. And like I said, I wasn't expected in the next day because I'd worked the night before. And it was even at an overtime rate. So maybe with my time off tomorrow, maybe I will go and sort out those wellies and possibly a new coat. Because this one, it's just not going to cut it. And that's it for chapter 6. Hope you enjoyed. Apologies for those of you on Facebook who have only had half the story, well, 3/4 of the story this evening. And apologies to YouTube completely because it's still spinning. But technology is what technology is, isn't it? Not a lot we can do with it. Can't always live with it. Definitely can't live without it. But Zoom has recorded it. And I will post it up as soon as it's finished crunching. Could be tomorrow. Depends how long it takes to crunch. But I hope you can join me next week for chapter 7. And just as a reminder, chapter 7 will be on Monday instead of Tuesday next week due to some other commitments I have Tuesday evening that I can't really rush back from because it's a bit too far on the other side of Plymouth. So I hope you can join me on Monday. Please, please, please feel free to share this far and wide. And again, if you have any comments or any ideas where you want to see this story go next, feel free to share them. As I said, this is being written as we speak, literally. So have a lovely evening. Have a great weekend when it starts. And I will speak to you again soon. Ta-ta, bye.